Welcome to Exceptionally Speaking, the podcast where we explore how to better understand and support exceptional learners. I'm Dr. Meryl, and each week I sit down with dedicated educators, parents, and advocates to share real strategies, inspiring stories, and moments of hope. If you're enjoying these conversations or learning something new, please be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Today, I'm joined by Cecilia Quintanilla, a neurodivergent educator, musician, and advocate originally from Cochabamba, Bolivia. Cecilia's work is deeply personal. She was inspired by her children's diagnoses, along with her own late in life discovery, to create something meaningful for the neurodivergent community. In addition to her work as an early childhood teacher, Cecilia is the founder of YB Neuro, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting neurodivergent individuals and their families. Her approach to teaching is filled with creativity, compassion, and a strong commitment to celebrating every kind of brain. In this episode, Cecilia shares her powerful story, from growing up in Bolivia and dreaming of being a teacher to navigating the U.S. school system as both a parent and an advocate. We talk about the challenges her children face in accessing gifted services, the importance of early identification, and how masking can sometimes hide a child's true potential. She also speaks about the role music plays in her teaching and the community she's building through YB Neuro. You can find more information about Cecilia and all our guests at hex24press.com. Please enjoy Exceptionally Speaking with Cecilia Quintanilla. Welcome, Cecilia. It's so good to see you.
Hi, Meryl. Thank you for having me.
First, I'm so excited to have you here on Exceptionally Speaking. I know we know each other a little, but really excited to get to know you a little bit more and hear your story. I'd love to just start with, how did you get into education? What's your journey been like to get to where you are and what you're doing today?
Yes, well, I always wanted to be a teacher. When I was little, I would run around with my dolls and just teach them whatever. My mom was very structured, so she always had a schedule for us on what we were going to do, like weekends and vacations. And she always made me teach my brother English or whatever, I was up for teaching him. So I always wanted to be a teacher. I also played the piano since I was 3. So I did both things together. I graduated high school when I was 17. And when I was 20, I graduated from the Conservatory of Music in Bolivia and also as a teacher. So I always had that thought that I was going to do special education. And with music, something like that. But then life happened. So I had my baby. And then when she was 3, I got my first job as a teacher. And we both started in an American school. So I was teaching English immersion. I started in pre-K, then I went kinder and then first grade. And then I applied to be a teacher here in Denver Public Schools. So 7 years ago, I started here, my journey in Colorado. And here I work as a preschool teacher. But my daughter came when she was in 5th grade. She took her reading test at the beginning of the year. And she was reading comprehension 4th grade. And when she finished the year, she took the same test and she was reading 8th grade. So she jumped 4 grades, and that popped something on her teacher. So she was nominated to be identified as gifted and talented. And then the process was really very confusing. I honestly didn't know what was happening. But then I got a letter and it said, well, your daughter's highly gifted. She's invited to this school. So then I started kind of looking around. And I talked to the GT coordinator at my building. And she's like, oh, actually, we're starting this certification here in the district. You should take it. And then she's like, wait, hold on. Because I don't know if preschool teachers take it, because this is something more for 3rd grade up. Let me research. So then she came back with this wonderful book and she was like, yep, do it. So I took the certification and then I met my wonderful mentor, grandmother, Vanessa Ewing. And she's like, I'm so glad you're here. I also do early childhood. Welcome. So then it was really a discovery of me, myself, on so many things that I didn't have an answer. And all those things that I was trying to take away from my daughter. Right? All the things that for me were a big conflict and always drama and, oh my God, right, Cecilia again, that I was trying to take away from my daughter so she wouldn't go through what I went through. And it really changed things. And it also showed me what to do with all these other kids that I had that were, in a limbo. And I don't even know in between what, but just in a different place in my preschool classroom that I really didn't know what to do. And even up to first grade when I was back in Bolivia. So those were 2 years full of like wows. And at the end, Vanessa was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I need to tell this to everybody. Like everybody should know about this. And especially in preschool too. You see those early signs and things. And like, even if third grade and fourth grade, they turn out not to be gifted and talented, which, it's so subjective as well, that we're not doing any harm at looking at those things for every preschooler.
I'm wondering, before you moved and started teaching in the US, what was your understanding or knowledge of gifted education, or what was that like in Bolivia? Is that non-existent?
Zero, non-existent. Yeah. The government came up with a new law, like an education reform, like before I came. And so they told us that all teachers, our classrooms had to be inclusive, but all the focus was on the kids that need more, right? So
Underperforming students.
underperforming, right? So zero. And I'm lucky because when I was in fourth grade, I was accepted to a music school. So I grew up in a neurodivergent school, a gifted school. We were all like screamed to see we had talents in music. So I, never saw it because I didn't experience it. And then my brother, same thing. He was in sixth grade, he started a STEM focused school. Nobody talks about giftedness or anything, but he found his people. So, I think that's why it didn't like really come to my head that it could be something. Yeah, zero before coming here.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And so your daughter did get identified, and then you had more of a personal breakthrough or series of realizations of, oh, this is kind of explaining how I am too. And so, and I think it's really good that you called out a huge amount of growth in a small amount of time, which is what happened with your daughter, that teacher flagged. So for all of our listeners who might be new to gifted education, that's a really easy entry point to look at growth. And when you see a huge amount of growth in a short amount of time, to start uplifting those students. So, and then what has it been like for your daughter after she was identified, and for your family just to move forward in that way, and then for your son as well?
So it's been a journey because one, so even though she was raised bilingual, technically here, English was still her second language. So when she was identified, she started middle school and she could not get services all through middle school because she had to leave her ELA status, her English learner status. So that was one thing. And then she started.
Essentially, they were choosing to put her in like ELD courses instead of giving the gifted support. Yeah, which we know is thumbs down. We don't want students to choose. They should get both. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's bored, right? She knew English. She's bad at like standardized testing. So like it took her some time. And then when she started high school, then in high school is more like, oh, your gifted child has to reach out to us and be in charge of their ALP. And I'm like, that's never gonna do. Like my gifted child is never gonna go and reach out to do more, or to be different or to start something. At least not my daughter. So she's never done it. And now that she's about to graduate, I had an email from the GT, even though like I wrote them emails every year and I was like, she needs to be pushed, please, and they're like, well, she should come to the meetings. I'm like, she's not going to. If there's not a consequence, she'll probably not go. So now that she's about to graduate, they did like make her work on her ALP. But I don't think she's doing anything really big with that. She's lucky she's found other things outside that have elevated her voice, and then just the knowledge at home on what to do and how to work with those behaviors has changed our life and dynamic completely. My house was like chaos, right? Messy and everybody full of emotions. And so we had to do a lot of changes, even like the way we eat, and things like that. Yeah.
Well, did you have to navigate any of 504 or IEP processes throughout your kids' careers in education?
No, so my son is not my biological son. He's my nephew, and he's living with me 4 years ago because of all this. So in Bolivia, right, he's very talented. He's very good at drawing. He's very out there. He's not like my daughter. My daughter's very quiet and shy. He's there. He wants everybody to notice him. So in school, he was very good at masking. So he was always in trouble, misbehaving, and nobody noticed that he was dyslexic, for example. It was just like, oh, he's lazy. Oh, he doesn't want to read or do his homework. So he struggled a lot with that. He's also always been on a spectrum of trying to find who he is and what's his identity. And sadly, Bolivia is a small country. He was in a Catholic school. So that was forbidden, right? There's no questioning, no anything, no even bringing it up. So that also had a lot to do, with growing up with that trauma. So during COVID, because we were doing online school, that's when his mom and I decided that maybe he could come here and finish school online. So he's finished school online here. Society is different. He's been able to explore those things outside. No, he was not enrolled in traditional school. But that worked out for him. He found a mentor. He's a fashion designer. He's taking his GED, um, which was another challenge of like how to have him take his GED.
Right. That's a whole process and system that people have to learn. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and just being motivated by himself, right? Not having a teacher. And even me, the motivation was that his ID was expiring. And the last week, he aced all his GD. He took all the tests and he did it like this.
And he did great. Yeah.
Yeah, he did great. But, it was a struggle all the years before when he didn't have that pressure.
Yeah. Will you talk a little bit for people who may not be aware of what do you mean by masking?
Yes. So a lot of gifted individuals, neurodivergents in general, notice, right? Like we all notice we're different. We all notice we're doing these things where we don't fit. Or I remember being a girl and being in my classroom and saying, like, why don't I care about these things? Like, why, it's not even on my radar. So masking is that behavior of pretending, right? Or trying to not move if your body wants to move so much, or not being bothered by the lights or the noises, or just pretending to be someone you're not.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's really important for people to remember that, like you're saying, that they did not maybe realize there was dyslexia going on because of our gifted population's ability to mask that and to do well enough that it doesn't come off as a red flag immediately. So for us to remember to not assume every kid is doing okay just because they look like they're doing okay. So I'm wondering, from your extensive work in ECE, for our ECE teachers, what would be like things they could start looking for in the ECE classroom for their students who might be gifted, to support them better?
Yes, well, one would be the sensory, being just very sensitive to sensory, to the lights, to the sounds, to the textures, being very particular on the food they eat, for example, where they sit. Also, movement. They sometimes have this difficulty, I would say most of the time, honestly, sitting down for circle time, and not only because they have to be still, but because it's repetitive, right? That's what we do in pre-K. So all week we read the same story, we're working on kind of the same words. So that repetitiveness is too boring for them. They need more. They sensory seeking, right? They're touching everything, putting things in their mouth. And they also have this tiny obsessions, I think, sometimes, right? Like, I had one boy and he was obsessed with Godzilla. So that was the only thing that would engage him. And they all have those things. So we all know, building relationships, it's the, fundamental. But those are good moments where you can start looking at those peculiar things.
I think that's really helpful. And I know we've both seen, and you've even mentioned it today already, the fact that sometimes gifted education is ignored in early education. And people say, oh, no, we wait till later, wait till they're older. And so it's a mindset shift that we, of course, are all collectively working to change. And have you found anything that has helped to open people's minds to think about giftedness differently in early education and actually consider it?
Yeah, so I'm really happy actually, because this last conferences that I went in early childhood, there were more sessions about neurodiversity. There's more people talking about it. Also, at the same time, more workshops on social emotional well-being, which goes hand to hand. And in those workshops, also the mention of, and this is how it might look like in neurodivergent students. So I think just in general, right, we're all realizing that this is happening so much and we need to address that ECE is the place where we have kind of the freedom and the time to explore those things and teach them how to, like, how are you now going to cope with the noise or the light in your classroom? How are you going to tell your teacher that you need these things? So, yeah, it's been actually really good to see that there's a lot of people talking about it.
I'm also wondering, since you're a musician and have been around music and really a scholar of music for your whole life, how do you incorporate that into your work as a teacher?
Wow, that's a very big part. In Bolivia, I always had clubs after school, and here as well. So when I moved, we had an official after school program, and I was doing piano and art. And then we lost all budget. So we've lost budget like 5, 6 years ago. So I started volunteering because the kids asked for it. And they really want that space after school. And so I've been doing that volunteer for 5 years, and now 5 years forward. This year we had 15 clubs. So I've been able to make partnerships with the Denver Children's Choir. We have a jiu-jitsu training center that goes to our school. We have a folkloric club. We have other teachers that have engaged in folkloric dance. Our school has the mariachi. So it is very important for me that when the kids leave the classroom, my classroom, they still have these areas where they can explore their talents. And some kids only shine on those after school activities, and it's all they're looking forward to.
It's such an important part. And like you said, it's sad that it has to be an after school or an afterthought and that's the first thing that's cut. But it doesn't mean that we stop trying, right? So
Yes,
um,
find those ways.
absolutely. So I'm wondering if you talk a little bit about your nonprofit and really what inspired you to start that and what its mission is and how you're doing now with it.
Well, Vanessa introduced me to all these wonderful leaders that were working here in Colorado, doing conferences for Black excellence. And then we did one conference for students that are English learners. And after all these conferences, people are asking, like, what now, right? What do we do now? So I gave this conference for my students back in Bolivia. And then the parents were like, same thing, like, what are we going to do now? And I'm like, well, it's hard because there's not like one thing that will solve everybody, right? Like, it's a process, it's something you have to learn about yourself and work on. So it evolved. It went through many things. I first thought we were going to be able to identify kids in Bolivia, and that was going to be the solution. But then teachers didn't want to. Schools really didn't want to talk about that or waste their time on a workshop that was about giftedness. And then also the concept of giftedness in my culture, the Hispanic Latina culture, has other connotations as well. And that was also a barrier, even with parents, wanting to know and their students. So now it's evolved to, we talk about it as neurodivergence. We put a big emphasis on giftedness because we want to shine on the good things and the positive, and that's a good way of doing it. And we have workshops. We have 6 to 8 workshops. We do it bi-monthly, or we've done some every month. And we also have discussion groups. So parents learn. It's, foundation for everybody. And then we have the discussion groups where parents can come and they really like just share their experiences. And that's been so great. Without me even trying, just parents kind of talking to each other. Nonprofit now is serving families in Chile, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, all over the US, Spain, because they're looking for that community. And I also have discussion groups for students, and I meet Saturdays and Sundays mornings, and they choose. They can come, one day or the other, or both days, and that's by month, like 2 times a month as well. And they love it. They love it. Most of them come Saturday and Sunday. All we do is talk about our brains. Today we're talking about like how our body always needs to move, and they're like, oh my god, yes, this happens to me and I always get in trouble and I do this. So then we share kind of things that would work. So it's been really wonderful to hear people say, I feel so good that I'm not alone. I thought I was the only one that was going through this. So many moms that are like, it's my fault that my child is suffering for these things. Because sadly, I would say 98% of the families that I have, and I have like around 150 families that are working with me right now. They come with behavior issues, with, schools that have represented the psychologist because their kids, can't function or there's something wrong or things like that. So it's really being like a way to find other people.
That's great. I think that's such a huge piece of gifted support is community building, because it can be so isolating, right? When you're the family thinking, I don't know how to deal with this. And yeah, it's a huge service that you're providing. Do you have a website or a way that people could get in contact and learn more about it?
Yes, of course. It's ybneuro.org. And I'm actually now working on launching an in-person program in August, hopefully, or January, we'll see. But the main part of the program here in Colorado is the partnerships I have for the after-school programs. So regardless if you're in my school or not, you can be part of it. And so people that want to get involved, people that want to share their stories, their neurodivergence, maybe they found out when they're grown-ups or what kind of supports they had or they wish to have. Most of my partnerships are like that. They're like, oh my God, I needed this. I want to serve. What can I teach? Can I come give a macrame class and things like that? So all is welcome.
What would be your future hopes for YB Neuro? It sounds like moving to offering some in person is a huge step. And so what do you see like 5 years from now?
My hopes, my dream is that students would have a little sensory place in their school that they could use. That's something like my
And you've made such huge progress so far. I'm super excited to see what happens and where you take it. So as we wrap up, I'd love to leave our listeners with a bit of hope for right now. So what's giving you hope for the future for the support of our neurodivergent learners? Yes. Yeah. And that's huge. It's huge. Even over the past 5 years, it's been a huge increase. So thank you for doing the work you're doing. It's really important and impactful. I'm happy to know you. And thank you for coming on the podcast. Maybe we can check in again in 6 months and just see how it's going and the future of YB Neuro. So thank you, Cecilia. Appreciate it. This episode of Exceptionally Speaking is brought to you by Hex 24 Press, where education meets imagination. I founded Hex 24 Press in 2024 to uplift educator voices and provide a publishing home for myself and other educators to bring our work into the world. You can find more information about today's guests, including links to their resources and services, at hex24press.com. Thank you for supporting educators, independent creators, and small business. We're so glad you're here.